Number 10. Clive Anderson. It's important to note that while all late night hosts do work hard to remember what projects every single one of their guests is promoting, they can easily get mixed up from time to time, and that's exactly what brought forth one of the most awkward encounters in UK TV history. When the Bee Gees appeared on Clive Anderson's All Talk in 1997, they grew so tired of his continuous jokes about their music that they infamously just got up and walked off set. As a poor attempt at humor, the host made remarks about the group's appearance and said that he thought the band were sisters rather than brothers, and that only his dog loves their high-pitched music. But the big turning point came when Anderson said that the band will always be Les Tossers to me, and you could literally see Barry Gibb's face begin to darken. To make matters worse, when the singer tried to talk about a song that he had written earlier in his career, saying he had forgotten that one. Clearly not loving the atmosphere, Barry became sarcastic and said, "We're getting on like a storm, aren't we, Clive?" before getting up on his feet and cursing at the host. He got up and left, and after even more awkwardness, the other two eventually did the same. Number 9. Katie Couric. In 2014, the television personality invited trans model Carmen Carrera to appear on her talk show Katie. After Carmen discussed her modeling career, Couric began asking her really invasive questions about her transition, like, was the whole process painful physically for you? And your private parts are different now, aren't they? As the questions were becoming increasingly personal and insensitive, Carmen finally decided to say something. Quote, "I don't want to talk about it because it's really personal. I'd rather talk about my modeling stuff. I'd rather talk about being in W and maybe being in Italian Vogue and doing fun stuff and showing people that after the transition there's still life to live." It was actually a great opportunity for Carmen to demonstrate that she is more than her transition, and that being trans is not the most interesting thing about her. For her part, Couric received some pretty intense backlash for her line of questioning, especially when Orange is the New Black star Laverne Cox appeared on the show and told the host that she was objectifying Carmen. It wasn't until 2017 that Couric revealed that she had the opportunity to cut the segment out of the interview altogether, but decided to keep it in as an educational moment for her audience. So she definitely learned something from the experience. Number 8. Jessica Simpson. Of all the celebrity talk show fails, this one is easily one of the messiest and the hardest to watch. When the singer appeared on the Ellen DeGeneres show in 2017, it quickly became clear that she had had one too many. Jessica slurred her words and fumbled over a range of topics, including the length of her marriage to Eric Johnson, which she said she couldn't remember, and then started talking about contraception, saying, "We got an IUD, nothing's going to get into that uterus." And when Ellen asked her about whether she was expanding her billion-dollar business, Jessica started rambling about vitamins and B12 energy. When asked if she's making more music, she claimed that she is, but she struggled to remember just how many songs she actually has. Quote, "I probably have about 38 or maybe 36 or 39, and Ellen said bluntly, "You don't have 38 songs." It really wasn't until 2020 that the singer addressed the incident in her tell-all memoir called Open Book, when she admitted to having drank before going on air. She claims that she's still so embarrassed by her behavior that she can't bring herself to watch the interview almost 3 years later because it was a weak moment for her, and she said she wasn't in the right place. But in recent years, she seems to be doing a whole lot better. Number 6. Dua Lipa. At first, the interview seemed to be going really well until some awkward questions were asked by Dua Lipa that made everyone watching pretty uncomfortable. During an episode of The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, Dua was guest hosting, and she accidentally referred to Gwen Stefani's partner at the time, Blake Shelton, as her husband, when they were not married. She started off the friendly conversation by saying, "So I heard that you've been spending quarantine with your husband, Blake Shelton, at the ranch in Oklahoma. Who else was with you? How was that?" But after a little silence, Gwen just replied by saying, "Well, he's not my husband, but that sounded cool when you said that." But what really fixed this moment is the fact that after 5 years together, Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton did go on to get married. What's even funnier is that she posted about the engagement on Instagram, and Dua Lipa actually commented on the news by referencing the cringy moment and wrote, "I guess our little interview aged well. Congratulations, best news." But whether or not Jimmy Fallon regretted having her on as a guest judge is something that still remains to be seen.
At number 5, Sharon Osbourne. Talk show host Sharon Osbourne found herself in some hot water earlier last year after she made some comments about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry that not only caused her to get backlash, but also lose a friend. Sharon Osbourne and Cheryl Underwood got into a heated argument surrounding Piers Morgan's comments about Meghan Markle. During this feud, Sharon backed up Pierce's comments about Meghan Markle's mental health, and this frustrated Cheryl because she didn't like the comments that were being made about those involved. The two got into a very heated debate that ended with a lot of drama, sparking a conversation about Sharon's ideals. She was called a racist, and a number of other accusations came out about how she's used various slurs in the past when talking about her other co-hosts. As a result of this, the network for their show launched an internal investigation, and that ended with Sharon being let go from the show.
Number 4. Kourtney Kardashian. For the Keeping Up with the Kardashian star, one of the biggest live TV fails came with her interview in 2016, just weeks after Kim Kardashian's horrific Paris robbery ordeal. Shortly afterwards, Kourtney appeared on Australian program The Today Show to talk about her latest project, before the hosts attempted to turn the conversation towards Kim. Quote, "We're very sympathetic and horrified, so we were wondering, how is everyone going? How is Kim doing?" Kourtney looked really frustrated and just said, before looking at somebody else in the room, most likely her publicist. An awkward silence ensued as her whole face went blank and she looked beyond the camera, muttering something under her breath about having someone come in. The presenters were confused as well, before they realized what was going on. David Campbell asked, "Hello, Kourtney, have we lost you?" Before the silence became unbearable and Kardashian's face disappeared off screen. The host became frustrated at the response and insisted that Kourtney should have just said that her sister was fine. To this day, her response has fans divided over whether or not it was even appropriate.
At number 3, Howard Stern. But speaking of Howard Stern, he himself has been banned from a late night show. Apparently, he and Jay Leno have had beef ever since Howard's 1995 appearance on The Tonight Show. This appearance was pretty chaotic. Howard entered onto the show with 2 women in bikinis and prompted the women to start kissing each other on air. On top of that, Howard kept speaking over Jay and other guests while on the show as well. Jay was apparently so fed up with Howard and his antics that he nearly walked off set and was so mad about the way that the show turned out that evening that he later called into Howard's show to say that he had, quote, gone beyond the acceptable standards. After that, Howard was banned and he and Jay have had beef ever since.
Number 2. David Letterman. Even though Lindsay Lohan visited The Late Show in 2013 with the intention of promoting Scary Movie 5, David Letterman spent the majority of the interview talking about the star's forthcoming return to rehab. This one was really bad because as soon as she sat down, Letterman said the actress looked remarkably well in a condescending tone. He then began asking invasive questions about whether or not Lohan steals things and manages her money responsibly. Despite all of her attempts to change the topic of conversation, the host kept going back to the question of rehab, like when was she gonna go, why was she going, and how long she planned to stay there. Eventually, the actress became frustrated and just said that they didn't discuss this in the pre-interview, while asking Letterman to focus on the positive. But even though she was clearly uncomfortable, he once again brought it up, and so by the end of the conversation, Lohan was literally in tears. The interview resurfaced online last year and has since sparked a wave of backlash against the veteran talk show host, who, in all fairness, has a pretty problematic history when it comes to making women uncomfortable on his show. Number 1. Cardi B. This one really takes the cake. On the after show of Love and Hip Hop New York, host Nina Parker asked cast member Asia Davies a question about her relationship with fellow co-star and ex-Swift, but before Asia could respond, Cardi sent a heel flying in Asia's direction, a signature move that we all know way too well. Cardi then demanded that Asia admit that she had an issue with her. Quote, "You judged me because I was a stripper, say the truth." It was immediately clear why the two had been positioned so far away. After trash talking her for a little bit, the artist was ready to throw down again with Asia. In fact, Cardi needed a whole team to keep her from laying hands on her rival. But the rapper may have been right in this situation because Swift admitted that Asia did not respect Cardi because of her past. He allegedly had to explain to her several times that she was no longer a stripper, and she's moved on from that and is making music now. So when Asia refused to answer the question about why she didn't give Cardi a chance, her rival went into full attack mode. And what ensued is the televised disaster that you can still watch to this day.
At number 10, Hugh Grant. Hugh was once banned from The Daily Show after having a really bad interview that really affected the show's host because the actor was being so rude. Jon Stewart, the former host of The Daily Show, said in an interview that Hugh Grant was the absolute worst guest he'd had on the show. He spoke about how when Hugh was on to promote his film Did You Hear About the Morgans, Hugh was making a huge scene backstage and was just being really mean and annoying to the people who were working on set. Apparently, Hugh was allegedly going around saying that he had better places to be. He also got really upset about the clip that they played from the film, saying, quote, "What is that clip? It's a terrible clip," to which Jon replied telling Hugh to make a better movie. You could really tell that Jon was fed up with Hugh and his attitude on the show. John went on to say that because of his poor experience with Hugh, he'd never have him back on his show. At number 9, Harmony Korine. I think it's an unspoken rule that when you're a guest somewhere, you should try to be on your best behavior. One person who really should have followed this rule is director Harmony Korine, who's best known for the movie Spring Breakers. There was once a time when Harmony made a number of appearances on The Late Show with David Letterman in the mid to late 90s. This was also during a time when Harmony was reportedly on a lot of drugs. Though he was a frequent guest on the show, his appearances just stopped all of a sudden, and no one really knew why until 2013 when Letterman revealed the truth as to why the director was banned from coming on the show. Apparently, Letterman caught the director going through Meryl Streep's purse one time, and that was just the last straw for the late night host. When talking about this fateful event, Letterman said, quote, "I went upstairs to greet Meryl Streep and welcome her to the show. I knocked on the door and she was not there. I looked around and saw Harmony going through her purse. True story. And so I said, that's it, put her things back in her bag and get out." End quote. After that, Harmony was no longer welcome on the show and hasn't been back since. Before we carry on talking about these rude celebrities, why not take a moment to leave a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and while you're at it, consider subscribing to the channel to see more videos like this one. At number 8, Bobcat Goldthwait. I think this goes without saying, but don't go setting fire to things. Back in 1994, actor Bobcat Goldthwait was a guest on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and during his guest appearance, the actor decided to just randomly set fire to his chair. At the time, Jay thought this was just a spontaneous bit, but in reality, Bobcat came prepared for this as he brought lighter fluid and a lighter that was hidden up his sleeve. Luckily, the other guest who was there that night, Lauren Hutton, was quick on her feet and doused the flames with a cup of water. Jay, understandably, was very unhappy with all this and banned Bobcat from the show. Not only that, but the actor was also charged with arson for this stunt and was ordered to pay over $3,300 in fines, some of which went towards replacing the chair he set fire to. He literally damaged the set, and if that's not rude, then I don't know what is.
Number 7, Harry Belafonte. This one is truly hilarious. The singer appeared on Eyewitness News to promote a documentary made about himself named Sing Your Song. But what viewers got out of the interview was a laugh, all because Harry was fast asleep when the anchor tried to speak with him. Eventually, the newscaster Layla Santiago ended up shouting at him, saying, "This is your wake-up call. He's meditating, he's taking a little nap," which caused all 3 newscasters on the show to erupt in laughter. His publicist later told the station that it was a technical glitch and that his earpiece wasn't working, so he decided to take the time to meditate before the interview. His publicist added that Mr. Belafonte is 84 years young, but sharper and more awake than most who have been interviewing him. Maybe the world would be a better place if more people took a moment to meditate. But in Belafonte's defense, it was probably pretty early in the morning during a time of filming. Whatever happened, the clip, which was from 10 years ago, only recently went viral after it was used to create a deepfake footage of President Biden dozing off while being live on air.
At number 6, Gene Simmons. I think we can all agree that Gene Simmons is kind of outlandish. He's a guy with a lot of energy and no filter, so when it comes to interviewing him live, you never know what he might say, but you can only hope that it won't be too offensive. At one point, the singer was a Fox favorite, making regular appearances on their programming where they would discuss hot topics in the world and would share their opinions on things. They liked the guy and liked having him on their show, but after causing a stir during a meeting at Fox and making some rude comments towards some of the other staff members, Gene got banned for life, and it was a hot topic of its own. Some of the things that Gene said to some of the women at the network got leaked, and it's not something you would want to have said to you. Let's just put it that way. After all of that went down, the singer was not welcomed back on their programming because they didn't like the way he behaved. At number 5, Jay Leno. This next ban was caused by one serious feud between Jay Leno and Conan O'Brien. Because both men were talented late night hosts, there were a lot of pitches from different networks trying to poach one or the other to take over talk shows and whatnot. Well, things got kind of heated when Conan was promised the hosting gig for The Tonight Show when Jay's contract was up. As you would imagine, Jay didn't take the news very well, and so he decided to start his own show, The Jay Leno Show, which aired before Conan's. Well, when neither of their shows were bringing in good ratings, the network reshuffled the time slots, gave Conan's slot to Jay, and bumped Conan's show back half an hour. Conan didn't like that, took a payout, and The Tonight Show fell back into Jay's hands. Later on, when asked if he would have Jay on an episode of his show, Conan shut that down, essentially saying that Jay would have been banned from his program. There was just a lot of bitterness between them, and the water under that bridge has certainly dried up. At number 4, Kelly Osbourne. Now, we just talked about Sharon Osbourne and her talk show scandal, but her daughter Kelly has also been in her share of controversies, including one that happened while on a talk show that kind of ruined her career because of a rude comment that she made. During an episode of The View, Kelly Osbourne really missed the mark when trying to clap back at Donald Trump, even though she was trying to diss Trump, and ended up getting in enough trouble herself. Just shortly before this episode aired, Donald Trump, who was at the time only a presidential nominee, was saying offensive things about the Latinx community and how he wanted to deport them. I'm sure we're all familiar with this one. Well, in a very poor attempt at clapping back at Trump's racist comments, Kelly said, quote, "If you kick every Latina out of this country, then who's going to be cleaning your toilet, Donald Trump?" What Kelly was trying to do was defend the Latinx community, but rather than stand up for them, she ended up offending them even more, as her remarks were interpreted as saying that the Latinx community is only good for being housekeepers, as depicted in many racial stereotypes. After facing so much backlash and realizing the gravity of her words, Kelly issued an apology saying, quote, "I want to start by saying I always take responsibility for my actions. In this particular case, I will take responsibility for my poor choice of words, but I will not apologize for being a racist, as I am not."
Number 3, Ellen DeGeneres. Celine Dion was not the least bit amused when she went on The Ellen Show in 2007 and got criticized for the fact that her son had long hair. Trying to be funny, Ellen outright told Celine that she was forgetting to cut her son's hair, then showed a photo of the cute little boy with shoulder-length hair. The issue is that Celine has probably gotten that same line from countless other people and was very tired of hearing about it. Ellen did not expect her to take the question to heart the way she did, and suddenly the tension in the room was so thick that you could cut it with a knife. Celine then began defending the length of her child's hair, asking Ellen if she had a problem with it. Quote, "Some people shave the head of their children and people say, oh, isn't that terrible? Well, I don't even cut my son's hair, and they say, oh my gosh, when is she going to cut her son's hair, you know? Whatever I do, I won't please anyone." She then explained that it was her son who made his own decision to keep his hair long, but Ellen had already sensed that she had made a mistake and swiftly changed the topic to Celine's music career after the uncomfortable moment.
At number 2, Marc Summers. When it comes to talk shows, sometimes you can never predict what's gonna happen. These shows are often used to catch up with a celebrity and just talk about life and whatnot, but sometimes these conversations can turn into brawls when the wrong thing is said, and this is pretty much what happened between Burt Reynolds and Marc Summers in 1994 when they were both guests on Jay Leno's talk show. The two men got into a heated brawl after some jokes were made that offended the both of them. Essentially, Marc Summers made a comment about how he was still married, while Burt at the time was going through a divorce, and it made Burt pretty upset. In retaliation, Burt threw some water at Marc, and that's what sparked the fight. It gets to the point where Jay Leno just can't keep the show together because his guests were fighting so much, and producers even went so far as to bring out pies for Marc and Burt to make it look like this fight was staged. After this, people got talking, and some people came to the conclusion that this brawl was uncalled for, and since Marc started it, he felt the most backlash. And finally, at number 1, Ellen. In late 2019, actress Dakota Johnson sat down for an interview with Ellen, and some people see this interview as the one that started this whole Ellen is mean scandal because of how rude Ellen was. During the interview, Ellen berated Dakota about the fact that she wasn't invited to Dakota's birthday party. People saw this whole debate as incredibly unnecessary, but the part that people loved the most was how Dakota shut Ellen down. When Ellen said that she was mad for not being invited to Dakota's birthday party, Dakota in response said, quote, "Actually no, that's not the truth, Ellen, you were invited. No, last time when I was on the show last year, you gave me a bunch of crap about not inviting you, but I didn't even know you wanted to be invited." End quote. Dakota was even backed up by one of the show's producers who reassured Ellen that she was invited and that she just didn't show up because at the time, she claimed that Dakota's Malibu party was, quote, "a little too far for her." Dakota shutting Ellen down and not being made to look like the bad guy Ellen intended was great for fans, and following Ellen's cancellation, fans started to realize just how rude Ellen was. At number 9, Kathy Griffin. Kathy Griffin is known for being pretty outspoken and controversial at times, and it's because of her antics that she's been banned from just about every talk show. Because of her unpredictable actions, use of crude language, and her problematic past, she isn't welcome on shows like The View, The Today Show, Ellen, Regis and Kelly, Jay Leno, Letterman, and many, many others. She's racked up a lot of these bans over the years, but some new ones, like being fired from CNN, come from the backlash that she gained after the Donald Trump incident where she posed with a fake bloodied model of Donald Trump's head. She's been known to ruffle people's feathers on live TV and pull stunts that are inappropriate for broadcast. For example, during her time hosting the New Year's Eve special with Anderson Cooper on CNN, she used profanity and even removed some of her clothing on TV. On top of that, she's offended people during award shows while making speeches and making inappropriate comments. Though she's been banned from certain TV shows, I really think that people just want her banned from the media in general because of her actions. Now, before I carry on talking about more celebrities banned from late night programs, I would first like to take a moment to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, because it really helps the channel out and we appreciate you guys supporting our platform. At number 7, Piers Morgan. I feel like when a celebrity asks for something specific, it should be given to them. I'm not talking about anything material like demanding a cup of ice chips or something. I mean a specific request in reference to the way that they're treated. For actor Kelsey Grammer, he made a very specific request when he was doing an interview with Piers Morgan, and when that request wasn't honored, there was a falling out that led to the actor being banned from the show because of the drama. When the actor made a guest appearance on Piers Morgan Tonight back in 2012, he requested that a picture of his ex-wife not be shown. He's willing to answer questions about her, but just didn't want to have a photo of her to be aired. Well, Piers didn't exactly honor that request, and when a photo of the ex-wife was shown, Kelsey stormed off set. The actor's publicist said that Piers had to take accountability for his actions because Kelsey was so mad about the situation, but instead, Piers barred the actor from his show. That was pretty rude of him. At number 6, Dax Shepard. Actor and comedian Dax Shepard has been very open about his struggles with substance abuse for some time now. He's opened up about some of the lowest points in his career that was caused by his substance abuse, including one time that got him banned from a late night show. Dax told a story about how he was once preparing to be on Late Night with Conan O'Brien in 2004, but when he was doing the pre-interview, he blacked out. Dax didn't remember any of the pre-interview where he was supposed to go over the talking points for the evening, and by the time his real interview started, he was so lost. He went into detail saying, quote, "I show up on the show and I don't know what he's talking about. I can tell he's queuing me up for stories I've told, but I don't know any of the stories," end quote. Because of how badly he messed up his interview, he was banned from the show for a few years until he got sober. Years later, he was welcomed back on the show and all was forgiven, but it was still a low point for the actor.
Number 5, Katy Perry. Katy Perry's 2017 interview with Ellen DeGeneres is a disaster from start to finish, and they're both partially to blame, although for different reasons. Things grew awkward really fast when Ellen forgot that Katy had once been married to Russell Brand. During a game of Will You Parry Me, a game where the singer was asked which celebrity crush she found more attractive, Katy said, "Do I have to get married again?" After a pause, Ellen looked genuinely confused and she just said, "You are not married?" To which Katy said, "I was, when I was 25. Remember you gave me some wedding gifts on the show?" When the moment was becoming a little too embarrassing for the singer, she began making scissor motions, telling Ellen to cut this part of the interview out. But it only got worse from then on as Ellen launched into the game, which made a slightly unhinged Katy pick between Harry Styles, Chris Martin, and Leonardo DiCaprio. But she got a little too honest and said, "What if I've already kissed a bunch of these people?" The whole episode led to speculations that Katy was tipsy during filming, but we'll never really know the truth.
At number 4, Gary Busey. A lot of people enjoy their personal space. I know that there are many people who love getting close to others and who are very physical people, but you know, not everybody likes that. Getting upset when someone invades your personal space without permission is pretty understandable, and this notion is what got Gary Busey banned from the Howard Stern show. Back in 2001, actor Gary Busey was on the Howard Stern show and seemed to have ignored the notion of personal space, and that rubbed Howard the wrong way. While on the show, the actor picked up Howard's co-host, Robin Quivers, giving him a big bear hug, and even chased Howard around the studio trying to wrestle him. Howard really didn't like what Gary was doing that day, and so he promptly banned him from coming back on the show. When Gary explained the motives behind his actions, he blamed it on his quote, 13 separate personalities. He continued to say that he was just really excitable that day, but that wasn't a good enough excuse to get him back onto the show until 2017, when he was invited to do an audio-only interview with Howard. At number 3, James Corden. Recently, TV host James Corden found himself in some trouble with fans after his Spill Your Guts segment of his show started facing backlash. Fans were calling for James to take accountability after he made some comments about some Asian foods that he had on the show that some fans thought were offensive. Because the foods that they use in the Spill Your Guts segment are supposed to be ones that you wouldn't eat, the fact that some Asian foods like balut were used and called quote disgusting made a lot of people take to the internet to call for accountability and an apology from James Corden. Apparently, James had been making these types of comments about a lot of different Asian dishes on a few occasions, so some people have said enough is enough and even created a petition calling for the removal of the Spill Your Guts segment. At number 2, Donald Trump. Now, to find out that Donald Trump has been banned from any kind of talk show really isn't all that surprising. So many hosts from various shows have banned the former president, but this next ban is a little juicier because it kind of involves some beef between the Donald and late night host Seth Meyers. In 2016, the late night talk show host issued a ban against Donald Trump in retaliation for Trump having revoked Seth's Washington Post credentials. Though it was an official ban, it was also done as a joke since Seth already knew that Donald would never be on a show anyway, but it was about the principle. In a joke statement to Donald, Seth said, quote, "We instituted this ban despite the fact that he's never been here or asked to be here or would never be caught dead here. I just think that it takes an amazing amount of courage on our part. So the ball is in your court, Donald. Either rescind your Washington Post ban or you're not allowed to appear on the show you have no interest in appearing on. Although maybe now that you can't have it, you're changing your mind." End quote. And finally, at number 1, Oprah Winfrey. This last ban seems to have been more so self-imposed. After making an appearance on David Letterman's show in 1989, Oprah Winfrey issued a self-imposed ban, refusing to go back on Letterman's show. After what she experienced on the show, Oprah and Letterman seem to have had some kind of feud going on, though it was more low-key than others. As for what happened to cause this self-imposed ban, well, Oprah finally opened up about the event that caused this back in 2013, saying, quote, "It was a terrible experience for me. The guy in the audience started yelling, 'Get her, Dave.' You were sort of baiting the audience and there were a bunch of drunk guys down the front. I was trying to mitigate the whole thing. It felt so uncomfortable for me. I didn't want to have that experience again." End quote. Basically, she was just really uncomfortable on the show and wanted to forget about the event, hence her minor beef with the late night host, and she just didn't want a repeat of that unpleasant experience.